When did you, Spencer, start to realize, hey, maybe I don't identify as a female?
I think it was after I was with somebody for 6 years, and that relationship was very like the butch and the femme, and it made me really uncomfortable, where I started wearing different clothing, and she was like, well, I don't really want to be with a trans person, like if you're gonna start dressing more butchy, like this might change how I feel. And like because I cannot do anything I'm told, I was like, well
Yeah, in that
case I'm gonna buy more flannel. And
on
like
my to-do list.
yeah, and that was when my drag career really kicked off, was with the Yes Men. And like then planning shows with Riikkii, and planning, like I've produced King Pride now for 3 years, and last year with Riikkii. So like that kind of role kind of took off for me. So, and then I didn't really know, because I was like, well, I guess I'm just trans, but I don't really feel that way. I don't really want to do anything about it. And when I moved in with my roommate, who's non-binary and has had top surgery, so has medically transitioned but is still non-binary, was like, I think you're just trans non-binary. And I was like, bing. And it all kind of lined up. Yeah, it all kind of lined up. And Riikkii had just kind of come out and said he like was thinking about things too. So I didn't want people to think, because you're always afraid that you're jumping on this trend wagon, right? But like really, it's not a trend, because we're just putting words to what things like already existed. Yeah. Where my mom was like,
and we're so lucky now to have the access to be able to do what we need.
Yeah, because I barely knew what
so
lesbian was when I was growing up, let alone queer or trans or anything. So like when people say, you're coming up with all these new words, it's like, we are.
Yeah,
like,
we
and
are,
they
and
always
it's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
and they always actually existed.
Thank God.
Like,
there's records of non-binary and trans people and two-spirit people like that go back millions of years. So like, it's really hilarious to me that now the generation is like, you're coming up with these no names, and I'm like,
new. It's all new. It's like, yeah. Because did y'all either of you have any like trans role models, non-binary role models that you looked up to when you were kind of growing up and figuring all your shit out?
I mean, not like, well, we did grow up with a trans man in the drag community, Tyler, at Zippers, and I think that he was probably one of the only trans person that I knew that was around so much, right? So I always had like a what if kind of thing, because I was still like, I wasn't really coming to terms with like my transition or my identity and stuff like that. So
even like on TV or anything?
Well,
like,
I mean,
like Buck Angel.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I did when I was 17, I did a placement for high school through Jay Wallace and like the Halton Organization for Pride Education, and he was the first trans person I had met, and his partner is Bear Bergman, who's an amazing author. And met them through that, so kind of knew that. But like my first partner was trans and told me when we were 16 in my car, was like, I think I'm a boy. And I was like, okay, great. Like, so I, okay, sure. Like, I love you no matter what. Yeah. I was like, okay. Yeah. So I just like, I kind of learned through his experience, like, of course, not being trans myself, but like taking him to doctor's appointments and like watching him shoot testosterone and watching his like body change was like definitely a big thing for me. And
no kidding. Yeah. Around 16.
Yeah. 16, 17. It was like, it was really interesting. And like, I'll always value that experience, because I also got to see it as a trans partner's perspective. Like, and now I can kind of attest to like Riikkii's partner and like what she might be going through, and like the social changes she's going to make in her life, and what she has to like come out to her parents and things like that, of like,
that's very valuable.
Yeah. And like what my future partners would kind of experience in that way, where like, it's not about them, but also like Taylor does have to explain to her parents at some point why her husband's not going to give her a biological child. You know what I mean? Like, that's still a coming out period for her.
She's already totally talked about that with them and stuff like that. And her parents are absolutely amazing. Yeah. And like, they never misgender me, and they totally understand, because they knew me when I first started my transition, and my voice was still pretty high. Yeah. And I still had boobs, so I mean, like, so they're also going through this transition with me as well, so it's like a gradual kind of, even her grandparents and stuff, like, same thing. Like,
that's amazing.
I just think that's what
a great story.
That's just one of the like things about trans issues that people don't think about, is what partners go through, because like there is a lot of focus on us, and of course it's like, it's our experience and we're living that life, and but also your partner goes through things too,
it's like
and
we're
like
all transitioning together, family, friends,
yeah,
everybody. And that's why, like, sometimes if my family misgenders me, I mean, I grew up with them for 27 years as a she. And I know it's not malicious, and I know they're not doing it just to hurt me. They're doing it because they need to adjust as well, you know, and they understand. And a lot of the time they're like, oh, and I'm like, it's okay. you realize we're good, right? So even
the correcting yourself,
exactly.
catching yourself and correcting
and
yourself.
They realize
that's
that.
great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Literally, all you have to do is go, "Oh, sorry," and move on.
I meant,
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no like long, winded
discussion
apology
that
or
needs to happen
anything.
about
No.
it.
That
It
makes
happens. Like
even more
we do it
uncomfortable.
with each other too. Like, we have friends that have just started to come out or transition, and like it takes a
Yeah.
minute to flip it over.
Sure.
And of course, I think we're way harder on ourselves because we're
Yeah.
trans, so we're like, you
gotta get this right.
I actually misgendered Spencer like last week, and
was
I was
so
like,
bizarre.
I stood there and I'm like, wait. What just
just happened?
What just happened? And everyone's
Yeah.
like, "What just happened?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know."
I don't even
so
know
if
what
you
just
could tell
happened.
me, that would be great.
I think it's
so
fine. It's
And that's
fine.
great to know for
Yeah.
people that like if you fuck up everyone.
Yeah, like if
Yeah.
he's my best friend. If
Then, like-
he fucks it up and like it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Give yourself some credit.
Totally.
Like, the thing is that you're trying.
exactly,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if you're like really pushing us and just doing it for no reason, like, that's a different story. But we're
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
vocal to be like, hey, like,
yeah,
do better.
They.
Like,
No
you know what I
shame.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no shame.
They.
It's like sometimes people are like, we're really trying. I'm like, right, but I worked really hard on my gender too. Like, I'm really trying not to punch you in the face. So maybe we could both be better and fix this issue. Yeah.
Okay, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about other people, about people on the trans spectrum?
I think that we all transition a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, so you're going to meet a trans woman who has no stubble, who has giant breasts that are not like discernible from like fake breasts. And then she's going to have a vagina and she's going to be curvy and have a high voice and be very beautiful and flowy, which is not the case. And then the same for trans men. They have to be masculine and muscular and
a lot of people think there's only one kind of trans, and a lot of people don't really open their minds to realize just because they're not, again, like medically transitioning, or just because they're not like a beefy jacked guy with like cute berry chest, like that doesn't mean you're any less trans or any more trans.
Yeah.
So I think one of the main things is that people need to start understanding that there is way more than one kind of trans.
yeah. And
There is,
especially,
like,
yeah.
hundreds of trans. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
if you
so many
identify as
genders.
trans, then you're trans, and it shouldn't fucking matter if this person disagrees or if this person disagrees, because you're trans, and that's all that matters.
And like
you
even
don't need to explain yourself to people.
Yeah,
So-
and like both of us walk around the world with a lot of mask privilege that we have to recognize a lot of the time, because Riikkii passes, and even that notion of passing is ridiculous.
Right.
But like when you look at Riikkie's a boy, moving on.
well, I pass most of the time unless we're in like a cis environment.
Yeah, unless
And
we're in a
then,
cis environment, then we get
like,
ladies,
girl,
and both
girl,
of us
girl,
are
we're
like,
Neither of those things.
what?
do you want me to lower my voice?
Like,
'Cause,
hi.
like,
Yeah.
seriously.
But also then there's like, our femme presenting non-binary or trans people identified, like they get no visibility. Like when I'm like, I'm trans non-binary, they go, oh, that makes sense because I fit into this nice category of like mask presenting, hair, small chest. But when you see somebody like some of our good friends are really femme presenting non-binary trans folk,
People just won't.
they just write them off.
She,
and they
she,
her, and they don't even think about it. They're like, oh, well, it's fine. I'm like, it's not fine. Like
Yeah.
their identity is no less valid than mine, but I fit into this like comfy box of trans where I look like that pre-cute, before T trans, which is very attractive. I feel like to the lesbian culture is like, yeah, you can be trans because you're still really female presenting and soft and all those things that I like.
And that's another thing is that a lot of the lesbian community, they don't really give any time to trans men.
They'll
and
date
stuff
me
like that.
because
So-
I'm soft, but it was Riikkii who's starting to grow stubble and is starting to like eventually won't have any trace of like feminine features in him. Like that's a problem because they want to be with a woman, but they're like, but you're an exception. And it's like, why though?
I don't want to be an exception.
I really don't
I
want to
wanna
be an exception.
Like, also, you're looking at me as a body and not a fucking person.
as a
so the
person.
fact that
Yeah.
you're doing that, I don't want you anyways because you're
no,
an
we're
asshole.
good.
So.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not every lesbian. It's just certain cliques.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like
Yeah.
anywhere, right?
We call them
So-
lesbros. Yeah, lesbros.
Bro dudes.
Bro dudes.
Yeah.
They're like the woman at the bar who like saves you from the douchey guy at the bar, but then treats you just as
Just
shitty.
as douchey.
Yeah.
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 Who's like, let me buy you a beer, beautiful. Like, blah, 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 blah. And like, both of
God.
us are like, "Ugh, get her away from me.
Leave.
Yeah, no, can't do it. Can't do it.
What is your experience then with like dating and I mean actually before we get to that maybe what then are good questions to ask about your gender and stuff like that? Somebody, a cis person just meeting you and not knowing how to gender you.
Right.
What can they do that's respectful and that
Yeah.
is gonna
Yeah.
I think the first question is like, what are your pronouns? and I'm like,
that's okay to
they,
just
them.
be like,
Oh, yeah.
nice to meet you. What are your pronouns?
Absolutely.
Cool
Even in the queer community, we do it for each other. Even we're not on dates. We're like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. What's your pronouns? And then you tell them and you're like, thank you. What's yours? And it's just like this exchange of
so it's just
common
like, it goes
trust.
asking your name.
Yeah.
Asking